Good evening and welcome to our Sunday chat, broadcasting from our studio in downtown St. Petersburg, Florida. I'd like to remind you all, since this is a live chat, that we're encouraging you, inviting you to type in, to chat in any questions, any comments that you have on the topic this evening. If you have a question that might be a little off topic, that's fine. Send it to us. We have time tonight, we'll address it, and if not, we'll try to get to it in a future chat. So this evening, what I'd like to discuss is this topic of the self-improvement phenomenon that seems to be pervasive in our culture these days. Everything you read or see, especially in marketing, seems to be focusing on self-improvement. One of the most obvious categories for this is in the rise of self-help books. Seems to be that when the economy or the political situation might be suffering a little bit or precarious, the sales of self-help books soar, even when other genres of books seem to suffer a little bit. And it's one of those things that people feel when they feel during times of uncertainty or change, they're more likely to turn to books and programs to help inspire them and motivate them. Now, if the industry is profiting from making people feel more inspired and hopeful about their lives, surely that's a good thing, right? Solutions to their problems. Many also believe that self-help books would be a tool to allow them to become these amazing and new and exciting people. That's not real either. These are just really the wrong reasons to go after a self-improvement program or books. In fact, obsessively reading self-help books or getting enrolled obsessively in these programs can actually be viewed as a manifestation of self-hatred or self-loathing, and that's pointing to a whole new problem in itself. So constantly looking for a quick fix or a solution to your unhappiness really never works. These quick shake and bake programs just don't work. To get real results, it takes internal reflection, maintaining a sense of purpose, doing the work. Marketing of everything, it seems, is from cars to breakfast cereal, leans heavily on this cultural frenzy to improve yourself somehow. And they're always reminding you that you're inadequate. Eventually, you're left questioning yourself at every turn and beginning to hate everything about yourself. In fact, the market is actually creating a frenzy of dissatisfaction, not really responding to the discontent of people, but creating the problem themselves very often. Self-improvement guidance has been around in the West since the time of the ancient Greeks and Greek philosophers, and all the way up to later thinkers like Benjamin Franklin. In the East, self-improvement education goes as far back as 5,000 years, the practice of yoga and meditation. This desire to improve yourself is a natural and balancing drive, as long as you have clarity of what you need to improve, what you need to balance, and why. That's the key. So it's imperative, in order to improve yourself, to have a broader and more total vision of yourself, of who you are, and what your real imbalances are. What are your chinks in the armor, your armor? The ones that are really responsible for chronic states of pain or discontent or unrest. Now, relying on the marketing to tell you is wrong and is a no-win proposition. In fact, it's actually created a cultural mass illusion of what is desirable, healthy, valuable, based on only what could be sold to you or brought into your life from the outside. Really effective self-improvement requires the ability to see yourself objectively. This is the fundamental principle of self-improvement. is being able to step back and assess yourself objectively, to be able to go inside and examine what's causing your discontent, your dis-ease with yourself, what's really behind it, and then give you the tools to take corrective action to create balance. This is the crux of a self-improvement approach. And this is exactly the reason I developed a process that the four-step path that I have offered education on this channel, in direct response to this need of a process or a framework to assess yourself, create balance, and self-improve. And the PATH is an acronym for pause, assess, take action, and heal. And it's a step-by-step meditative process that I used for my own self-improvement and continue to use to this day. And I teach it to my students. In fact, I taught some this morning, working with the same tools that I'm offering on this channel. Also, just as a note, you could also go to my website, which is warnerhealingguidance.com, to get onto my email list. And there you actually can get a written copy of the four-step path and access to some other ongoing free content. So that's just an aside, but check out the other videos on this channel and also go to my website. And you'll really get a detailed approach and training in the PATH meditation process, the process I'm offering for self-improvement. The PATH is based on a model of what the total optimum human being is. And this model of what a total optimum human being is one that's accepted by all the major wisdom traditions that I'm aware of. They may be using different wording, but the basic concepts are the same. So what is it? What are we moving towards when we're trying to improve ourselves? What kind of person are we trying to become? And the PATH model for that is clear. And as I said, it's based on distilled wisdom from the wisdom traditions around the world. And I'll give this to you in a brief synopsis here. Who we are in this human life is comprised of two interrelated components, two sides of ourselves, if you will. One we call the ego self. And the ego self is that part of us that's comprised of our thoughts, our emotions, the body, our five senses. And it's the part of us that navigates most of our day-to-day living. It cooks our meals, it drives our car, it does a lot of our work that we do in our jobs, changes light bulbs. It's identified greatly as being always in flux. It's always changing. Our thoughts, our emotions are always in flux, are always changing. The other part of ourselves is the authentic self, or what we call I like the word objective observer. Now, the objective observer is a level of awareness or consciousness that's available to us all the time. And it differs from the ego self in that the objective observer is never in flux, it's constant. And it is our source of wisdom, of discernment, of compassion. So keeping in mind we have these two aspects of ourselves, sort of two sides of the same coin of who we are. The ego self is that part of us that we go to improve. The aspects of the ego self is where we're looking to levy improvement, because the authentic self is perfect as it is. It doesn't need fixing or balancing. And in reality, the authentic self or the observer is really who we are. It's our constant identity. It's our true identity. So what this starts to tell us is that who we really are, beyond all this surface stuff, is perfect. It doesn't need fixing or improving. But what we need to be working on are those imbalances of the ego self. We want to go through life with a balanced ego identity. This is going to give us this range of motion to access the observer more readily. So being able to observe our actions and our reactions of the ego self from this objective observer perspective. And this gives us an ability, gives us some clarity to who we are and what our flaws are. What are those things we need to look at? So being able to step back, objectively pause, step back and look at ourselves and say, what needs working on? What's throwing me out of balance? What really do I need to improve in this ego identity of myself? Looking at those chronic conditions that underlie our surface discontent, those chronic conditions like chronic fear or anger or non-forgiveness, judgments, false expectations. We may think it's our nose or our ears or our car or our income that's causing our discontent. But if we objectively step back and really look at the situation and look at ourselves, we may realize that my dissatisfaction with my nose or any aspect of my body is really not the real problem. It's a manifestation or a symptom of something that's deeper, a deeper dissatisfaction or misunderstanding of who I am. So we can really work on balancing our perspective of yourself and not dwelling on the shallow, insignificant things that you thought were so terrible. But we want to be able to work on the bigger things, the prime movers of imbalance in ourselves. We can then begin to let go of the stress of pumping ourselves up to sell ourselves to others, to feel adequate. We come to this realization as we're using this approach to self-improvement, that we are total and adequate in our true identity, the identity of the authentic self or the observer. We, from that perspective, can observe our weaknesses and not fight them, but just let go of their hold on us. Maybe even step back and laugh at them a little bit. Laugh at ourselves a little bit. And stop pretending anymore. We don't need to pretend. It's very liberating. It's very freeing. So in discussing this topic with numerous folks before the chat this evening, I had a number of questions come my way. And I thought I'd share them with you. And I took down the questions and I gave them some thought. And I'd like to share the question and my answers with them. And I do want to remind you all that, and invite you again to please chat in. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what your questions might be. Maybe let me know what kinds of things that you've been working on, things that you might be dissatisfied with in yourself. Or what have you tried that works? What have you tried that didn't work for you in seeking to be a better person or to improve yourself? So one of the questions I got today was, can we try too hard to improve ourselves? And as I answer these questions, I'd like you all to think about that. And maybe if you have a different angle or a different answer to the question as I do, please let me know and share them with us. I won't read your name off on the air here, but I will share your content if you wish. I believe we can definitely try too hard to self-improve. And again, this goes back to, what are you trying to improve and why? Are you focusing on things that are really not root causes? Are you focusing on relatively superficial things? Are you focusing on things that reflect a sense of self-hating or self-loathing or fixation on a part of yourself? Body things or social things. Maybe they're not quite as significant as you make them over to be. If we try to overcorrect too much, we can create a whole nother set of problems, becoming obsessive and perfectionist, holding on loosely. Remember, the ego self is that place that we're trying to correct or balance, and it's always in flux, and it's not who we truly are. Ask yourself this: when something is driving you to fix it, correct it, Why do I want to improve this? What's behind that? Is improving this facet of who I am, is it critical to my well-being? Is it a real imbalance? Or is it a reflection of something deeper, a deeper imbalance? What's my obsession or my concern with this based on? Is it based on the opinions of others? Maybe it's based on low self-esteem to start with. Very often, our dissatisfaction with ourselves has origins in what I call rants and chants. The rants are more these personal rants. This is interior self-talk, maybe caustic self-talk, maybe degrading or judgmental self-talk. I'm not good enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not as much as the next person. And sometimes this comes from our own head. A lot of times that can come from feedback we've gotten from family or education or maybe even our religion or belief system. Something in our lives we've interpreted or has been said to us or we have learned that makes us feel less than, and we need to improve it. Then there's the other angle, is what are called cultural chants. Aside from personal rants, we have cultural chants. And we talked a little bit about that in the beginning, about marketing. Marketing is the vehicle for the culture to chant to us, our economic culture to chant to us. In order to be a real man, you need this. To be a real woman, you look like that. To be successful, this is what happened. Your watch says everything there is to say about you. Or I can judge a person just by the car they drive. These are all cultural chants. And they're strong. They are very strong. In fact, I think very often, even some of the most balanced individuals, if you will, can scratch the surface a little bit and they find that they still are responding to some of these cultural chants. And they start to realize, why am I doing what I'm doing? Because I don't want to look foolish in front of someone else, or I want to impress someone else, this type of thing. So we have to look, what's driving this? What are the legs under my drive for improvement, self-improvement? Remember, what we're looking for is balance in that ego self, in our identity. Balance in these larger areas, chronic states, getting clarity on who you really are and what matters and what doesn't. And I hope that who asked me that question, I gave them a little bit of clarity. Once again, as you've heard my answer, I'd love to hear what you have to say about that as we move on. Feel free to drop back on a previous question that I answered and tell me what you think. The next question I got I thought was very interesting, because I guess it points to me a bit. I've taken on a role as a teacher here, or at least a guide. And I was asked, what's the role of teachers? What's the role of teachers in the self-improvement effort? I think it was a great question. And in that package or that category of teacher, I'm going to throw in books and programs a little bit too, because they're being put together by teachers and people who are trying to guide us. Teachers in some books can be helpful to improve yourself, but I say that with a big caution. Right? This is not something we can outsource. Self-improvement cannot be outsourced. If you do, you're not going to get the results you really need or want. Teachers, like students, have their own imbalances. So when I'm choosing a teacher, or I'm assessing or vetting someone who's written a program or a book, giving me answers, how to help myself, how to improve myself, I ask questions. If I have some ability to answer this, how does the teacher handle their own stuff? If I'm working with a teacher one-on-one or in a classroom environment, as I have historically in the yoga world, meditation world, teacher, how are they teaching by example? How are they handling their own imbalances? What kind of example? They're not enamored with themselves as being the fount of knowledge. In fact, the role of the teacher is much different than I think what a lot of people think. I believe a teacher, another thing I like to look for, are they reactive? That seems to be one of the, everything's perfect. The teacher can sit in front of a class, or the teacher can write a book, or what have you. They're not being challenged by life. But challenge them a little bit. Do they get reactive and uptight? Are they uptight and reactive about flaws that may be pointed out to them? Do they pretend to know? I think someone who really knows, the only thing they really know they have clarity on is what they don't know. If they are willing to tell you what they don't know, then when they say they know something, you have a much better guarantee that they're being honest, because you're clear they're willing to tell you all the things when they don't know. Can they use their own experiences? Are they teaching from their own experience? Are they sharing that to some degree? Are they getting a little naked with you on that? Are they, showing them the chinks in their armor a bit and using them, leveraging that, or from any program? You're looking in the wrong place. Your truth is the result of your own direct experience in the practice. The teacher in the books, the practices, they prepare you. They can guide you. They prepare your mind. They make you aware of obstacles, give you some guidance on how to navigate obstacles, how to handle them. They can help you. The teacher can put you in situations where you have an optimum opportunity of having your own experiences. That's the key. If the teacher is not doing that, if they're claiming to be a source of truth, they're the fount of all knowledge, whether it's a book or a teacher, exclusive source of truth, or they create an overdependence on themselves. This is something that I've run into in my life experience with some teachers, is they create a dependence on them. They hold back just a little bit, not because they're being wise and drip feeding according to your needs, but because they want to have a sense of control. These are things to watch for. If you have someone who's claiming to be the source of truth, if you have someone who is making you feel overdependent on the teacher or a text or a doctrine, then I say step away. A good teacher should be working themselves out of a job. Literally, they should be working themselves out of a job. They should be able to set you on the path and get you moving in your own direction, having your own experiences, exploring your own truth. And I'm going to go back to the path process I developed is designed to be just that kind of a guide for you to self-explore and to self-improve. It's that guidance that it provides. And it's just leading you to your own truth. It's not giving truth. It's not attempting to. Does that help, Rob? Okay, good. So another question I got earlier today is, can we get too dogmatic into one system, or can we get too invested in one system? One system can be helpful when we're just starting and need some traction, perhaps. Starting with one system, for instance, one meditation system or one approach, let's say yoga or another system, whatever. Starting with one system is not a bad idea. Flitting around from one thing to another, you're not giving yourself a chance to explore the depth and go through the process. These are all processes. It's not shake and bake. It's not, ready-made. You have all of these directions, all of these systems tend to be process-oriented. They should be, at least. But be wary of dogma and too much dogma. It's not about dogma. And if you're running into a system that is asking you to just believe a bunch of dogmatic precepts without giving you the tools to have a direct experience of your own, then I would say examine that very closely. Remember, it's about a process, finding a process to self-explore. Dogma becomes eventually exclusive. There's the in-group and the out-group. There's the people who hold this dogma and the people who don't. Processes are for everyone to reach their own conclusions. The key here is to realize, and the teacher you're looking for, the system you're looking for, is reminding you that the answers you're looking for are not outside yourself. They're within you. You have the capability of finding the answers you're looking for inside your own awareness. This comes through being able to objectively observe yourself, assess yourself, by connecting with that objective observer and then assessing the ego self, the ego identity, see what needs work, and then getting in there and working on it. Too much dogma? I'd say walk away. Be willing to shift, to pivot, to change. Listen to your intuition. If your gut feeling is telling you something's off, step back. Take a fast from it. Take a fast from that system. Maybe try something else. Again, I want to remind you, if you're just tuning in, if you're just coming to the chat, or you just came in the last few minutes, that I'm answering some questions that were posed to me earlier in the last few days, talking to some folks on this topic of self-improvement phenomena. I'm fielding some of these questions and providing some answers. If you have any comments or you'd like to chime in with your answers, comments, or questions based on what we're discussing, please chat in and we'll get to your questions and comments. And even if you have a topic that might be just a little off reservation or a tangent, please chat it in. If I can't get to it or I can't work it into the discussion this evening, we'll definitely try to get to it at a future date. So another concept here is, well, if we're perfect on the inside, if we're perfect in this authentic self, why do we need self-improvement? And I kind of answered this question a little earlier when we look at, it goes back to the model I talked about earlier, the ego self and the authentic self. Ego self's always in flux. It's the part of us, as I said, it's our thoughts, our emotions, our physical state. Well, we know our bodies are always in flux and they're aging. You know, eventually the body will drop off. It will get sick. It will die. And this is just a reality. Our thoughts and our emotions, even in the most wise and grounded person, the thoughts and emotions are in flux. But that's the part of us we're trying to work with. But in order to work with it, the first thing we need to start working on is being able to identify, recognize our ability, and groom our ability to step back and objectively look, objectively observe ourselves. That's the primary skill we're looking for here. So in order to navigate our day-to-day work, we need to have a balanced ego self. Yes, our true identity is perfect, but we have the ego self to live in the world. We, as been said before, even the wisest person is in the world, maybe not of the world, but in the world. That in the world part of us is the ego self. That not of the world part of us is the observer or the authentic self. We want to be able to move through life with less pain, with less stress, and at that same time develop our range of motion to connect to our awareness, to this level of awareness and consciousness, the observer. Okay. So I think this next question, this may be something you all listening tonight might want to run through your own mental gears a little bit. Why do some of us crave self-improvement? Are you that person? Ask yourself. Are you the person that has a stack of self-help books by your bed? Nothing wrong with that. Probably a bunch of those in my house as we speak. But I think there are folks, and I know them, I know some very well, who seem to crave self-improvement. And why would that be? And there's a variety of reasons. I think folks that crave self-improvement and go to the constantly searching, consuming anything they can get their hands on. Possibly one reason, one answer to this question is they are harboring a chronic sense of inadequacy, something they may not be able to put their finger on, but something that's gnawing on them. Maybe back to previous ideas, something that a self-perception of themselves coming from a personal rant or a cultural chant. Perhaps they've always been told they were this or that. Maybe they came into life with physical or other types of, I will say, handicaps, which may not be actual handicaps, but they perceive them to be handicap. Wow, I came into the world poor. I came into the world short or too heavy or too this or too that, or I have a physical condition that might be keeping me from having certain opportunities. So there could be a chronic sense of inadequacy and not being able to adequately address it. They're not getting to the core, the root cause of that feeling. Thinking things like body image. What does it mean to be successful? What does it mean to be a real man or a real woman? Ironically, those things change. So talk about, that's not even constant. I've lived a few decades here, and those in my lifetime have changed. What is it? Just the physical paradigm of what a beautiful woman or a buff-looking guy looks like. It's changed from the 50s, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, up there now. I just gave my age away. But that changes it within a lifetime. So these can be things that keep us off balance. Paradigms established by our families, our religion, our education. Ultimately, this craving for self-improvement is calling out an inability to objectively observe yourself. Those who are craving self-improvement are not getting to the root cause of what's throwing them off. And they don't have that ability, they haven't cultivated or realized that was what they need to do to step back and start to observe themselves with a little objectivity. They're still in the bubble. They're still reacting, as opposed to being outside the bubble looking in. Now, I don't want to confuse this idea here. So far, it sounded, I think probably to some it may have sounded like all self-improvement. Oh, it's just a waste of time. There's no good reason to. Or I'm not talking about people who crave self-improvement from a place of wanting to better their job, create a more wholesome or fulfilling life, get more education, getting more training to develop themselves or to provide in a balanced, real way for their families or for their community. Wanting to improve their health constantly, but not obsessively. There's a fine line here between being motivated to improve yourself, to challenge yourself, or to be obsessed with imperfections or perceived imperfections. Wanting to increase your health and move in that direction for your health, not just because you're trying to fit some distorted paradigm what you should look like. Think balance. Think balance. That's the key. Okay. I have another interesting question that came up. So what does it look like? What does self-improvement look like? What is a person who is doing that? How do I know I'm doing that? What is it? How's that moving? What's a person look like that is moving in the right direction, improving themselves? Again, I'm going to repeat myself, but I can't say this too much. First and foremost, self-improvement, a benchmark of that is that ability. That's the first thing you need to really do to know that you're moving in the right direction. You're trying to correct the right things, or the most potent things, is developing that ability to objectively look at yourself. Make clear assessments, take potent balancing actions. Again, that's what the P.A.T.H process is for, that I've developed. And that's probably the biggest thing you can do, because it's that primary skill that will be the foundation of addressing anything else. If I start running around trying to fix things, let's just use your car as an example. If you're going to fix your car, you're going to take your car to the mechanic. You've identified something possibly is wrong with it. It's making a noise, or it's not driving correctly, or what have you. You take it to the mechanic. Now, you don't want the mechanic to just randomly go in there and start ripping stuff out and putting new this in and that and running all sorts of money, your bills up on you. You want that mechanic to have a process to objectively assess what's wrong with the engine. There's a process. How does he know or she know that that is what's going on? They have an assessment process. They're not getting emotionally involved in your car. They're simply listening, using their tools to assess, and then take the most appropriate action. That's what we're doing with this process that I'm offering you. It's the same process you would use to fix your car. It's the same process a doctor would use to assess a patient, or a financial advisor to look at your portfolio. Let's objectively look at the situation, assess where there's imbalances, where can we add or subtract as we need to, and then take the appropriate action. Other ways that this self-improvement, or moving in the direction of real self-improvement, how does it manifest? What does it look like? That person, I believe, is that person who's becoming less reactive, more responsive to life, responding appropriately, allocating the resources appropriately, holding on loosely to black and white thinking, less dogmatic. This is a big one. Becoming more detached from outcomes. Person who is moving towards more balance, more improvement, if you will, is able to do their best at the moment, do the best job they can, whatever that is right then, and then step back and let go of attachment to outcomes, because you really don't control the outcome anyway. You can only control your actions. Someone who's come to that realization, they're moving in the direction of self-improvement. They tend to be more confident not just in what they know, but confident and comfortable with what they don't know. Again, that was a hallmark of a good teacher. I also find that the more balanced, the more, in quotes, self-improved we are, we tend to have a more genuine sense of humor, that ability to sort of see the lightness, even in ourselves, looking at my faults, looking at my mistakes and these types of things, and not being so critical, not being so self-critical. And then when I'm not so self-critical, I can be a lot less critical of others. So you start to see that, and feeling lighter, just feeling lighter in life. How do I know if I'm improving? I'm less reactive, and I feel lighter. I feel like I just lost 100 pounds. I'm not dragging the weight of fears and angers and resentments around, at least not as much. I'm starting to get some of those rocks out of my backpack. Yeah. What's up, Rob?
Is there a difference between self-mastery, as professed by so many different religions and methods and systems in self-improvement?
So the question was, I'm not sure if everybody heard of it, the question is there a difference between this term self-mastery and self-improvement? And I know a lot of the systems out there use this word self-mastery. This is me personally, I have a bit of an aversion to this concept of this word master or mastery. Maybe it's the same aversion as I have to the word guru, because it's not part of Western culture. It's an import idea. But the idea of mastery says to me, I'm done. I have conquered myself. Self-mastery. I have now conquered myself. In reality, even in authentic yoga, there's the realization that we don't master ourselves. Not in this lifetime, and I don't know what happens after we die. I haven't been there. We're moving towards mastery. We're moving towards being more the captain of our own ship. We're moving to being less reactive. But as long as we're alive, we're going to have to tack a little bit. We're going to have to adjust our sails, and I have to adjust that tail fin a little bit. We're not going to be moving perfectly. So I balk at the word mastery. That's just me, because I think the word mastery is kind of black and white, and I think it's a little haughty, and it's a little self-presumptuous. I think we're moving in that direction, but I think that should answer your question with that. Good, thank you. So another question that came across the board is does self-improvement look different in different people? And I think it's not a no-brainer. There are going to be elements, certain things are the same, and there's going to be a lot of things that are different. The one thing that will be consistent as people are moving successfully towards self-improvement, I'm going to go back to it, is that person is better and better able to observe themselves objectively and assess themselves objectively. That's going to be across the board. That's going to be anyone who's really making significant movement in self-improvement is getting better and better at objectively assessing themselves. And then the differences come in is we all have different things to work on. Different people have different imbalances. We have different, I might be working on chronic fear. You might be working on resentment, or being very judgmental, or having false expectations. We have different chronic states we're working on. They manifest differently in us. We use different tools in that path toolbox, meditation tools to create balance. But what we share is that we all jump into the pool from the same diving board. Now, what we do in the pool of self-balance and self-improvement depends on what we need. Okay. I have once, and I do believe that I've said before that all honest attempts at meditation are successful. And I believe because some movement is made, you're moving, you're attempting, you're working on it, and you're moving forward a little bit. I think all attempts, I was asked, are all attempts at self-improvement successful? And I think the answer is all honest attempts at self-improvement have merit. And in that way, they're successful. If the student is allowed to make errors and assessment and application, and make errors in assessment or application, and then get back on track, this is forward movement. It might even look like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but that's still 1 step forward. You're still moving in that direction. This is where a really good teacher can come in. The teacher can help the student through proper questioning and proper guidance determine where to make those corrections. They get off track. Gently bring them back on. This reduces the possibility of negative learning, having to unlearn things then, and the eventual frustration that comes out of that. Every genuine attempt towards balance is rewarded in measure of clarity. I think we got time for just a couple more questions here. I think this is a very interesting question. Asking the difference, or are we really difference between training ourselves to conform, to be better conformists, or are we really self-improving, or are we just training ourselves to better conform to standards that have been set by someone else? How do we know the difference? I have to be really clear here. Am I just getting better? I'm improving. Am I just getting better at being a good soldier? Am I getting better at being a good student or a good citizen or what have you? And I think this all goes back to, it depends on the yardstick you're measuring your improvement by. If, in the military, your success in the military model is one of learning to conform to the standards of the military. By military standards, you're improving yourself if you're following that model and you're becoming more fit, more trained, more obedient, whatever they're looking for. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're becoming a more balanced and content individual. It just means that you have adhered to a model of improvement within the model. This can also happen with parents. Adhering to model parents can give to your education system or your religion. They have their paradigm of success, and depending on the parents, success by parents may be gauged simply by their standards, not guiding you to self-awareness or clarity to who you are, but becoming who they want you to be. What does that religion want you to be? What does that state want you to be? What do your parents want you to be? Well, are they moving you to your own truth? Okay, you always have to ask, and I think this question has a lot of depth, because this is something we need to check ourselves on all the time. As I'm moving to self-improvement, who's playing the tune here? Am I looking for my own truth? Do I have a system? Do I have a plan that's actually moving me to my own truth, or am I simply trying to please others, or have I adopted someone else's yardstick? How do I know? Well, is the path you're on bringing you to less reactiveness? Is it making you more responsive, more balanced? Is it giving you a greater range of motion to see yourself objectively, to make your decisions more wisely, more compassionately? A growing sense of compassion and a combination of being detached and compassionate are earmarks of moving on a path of balance and true self-improvement. Do I have fewer expectations, less judgment? These, I believe, are the indicators of real self-improvement, at least in the sense that I'm offering. A self-improvement that's not based on a yardstick other than your growing awareness of what balance is, growing awareness of this. I feel lighter. How does it make you feel? How does it make you respond to life? Self-improvement is something just that. It's something you do yourself. Do we have to do the whole thing ourselves? Yeah, you kind of do. Like I said, you can have systems, you can have parents, you can have military, you can have religion, you can have all these things telling you how to improve yourself. But in reality, self-improvement is just that. It's inherent in the name. Self-improvement. It's not just who you're working on, but it's who's got to do it. You have to do it, and you are establishing how that manifests in yourself. What is best for me? Be careful of the teacher again. The teacher is guiding you. If the system is not guiding you to unveil, uncover, discover your truth, if they're trying to make you conform to a dogma, to a construct that's possibly even self-serving to them. Parents can be self-serving. I'm a parent. I'm a grandparent. I see that. I want my children to succeed, and sometimes I'm going, wow, that's about me, isn't it? It's not about them. It's not about them growing. It's about how it makes me feel or how it makes me look. I've got to check my feelings at the door as a parent, as a teacher. I want my students to succeed, and is that because it makes me look good, or is it helping them move? Is that student moving? Am I guiding the student to move down the direction they need to go? Teachers can be self-serving, both not just for their ego, but also for their wallet. The more successful students I have, the more people are going to be willing to pay money. But honest teaching, honest parenting, honest guidance is about the student. It's about the child. It's about the person who's under your direction. And if you're that person under someone else's direction, you have to make sure that you have to look out for yourself and make sure you're being guided appropriately. You're looking to find truth in your own experiences. Did you have a question, Rob?
When there's so many things to work on, where do I start? I mean, there are some ideas about that, but where do I?
That's a thing. So the question is, I have so many things to work on, as I do. I know I do. All of us do. Where do I start? How do I determine where do I start working on first? Well, first of all, having a process to stop, and that means maybe that just means sit down and quiet some of the noise of life down for a moment, be able to draw inwards and start to just do a self-scan. Scan the components of the ego self. All right, I'm gonna step back, observe myself objectively, what's going on with the body, what's going on with the mind, what's going on with the emotions, what's going on in my situation or my life. So this process is going to give us some feedback. Right now, what is getting my attention? Is it a body thing? Is it an emotion thing? Is it a thought? Is it a mental state? Is it a life situation? Maybe I'm in a cycle of behavior. I keep getting the same job or the same partner, which proves to be caustic to me. What category in my life is my loudest noise right now? What's getting my attention right now? And that's where we leverage our efforts, our self-improvement effort right now. What is getting my attention right this moment? Because that's really what we can work on. What's manifesting right now? And then we say, okay, I stopped and I'm really looking at this. I've taken a moment to drop back and observe myself using that first and foremost tool, that observation tool. And I realize right now, I'm really angry. I didn't really notice it, but I'm really angry. My loudest noise right now, my greatest imbalance, my most potent direction for self-improvement right this moment would be to address that anger. So I'm going to get into the toolbox because that's my loudest noise. It's far and above the body or anything else that's going on with me. I want to go into the toolbox and go after that. Does that make sense? Okay, because what I go after at any given moment, it could be different this afternoon. This morning it was one thing. This afternoon I went and checked in on myself and I said, there's something else I need to work on now. Something else is getting my attention. Self-improvement in this model is ongoing. It's not, I got it done. All right, that one's done. Check it off my list. We're constantly moving in a direction. The destination, we may never get to the destination. This goes back to the question of mastery. Do I get to a place where I've mastered something and I no longer need to work on it? My thinking is no, you don't. But you get better at it. You navigate it much better, okay? I think this is the direction we're going towards. And how do I assess what do I work on first? What's getting my attention? What's throwing me off balance in real time, right now? Not what threw me off a week ago. Okay, I just want to, as we start to wrap up this evening's chat, I want to first of all thank you all for joining in this evening. And I thank the folks that I've talked to before the chat this evening and gave me these questions. And thank you, Rob, for all of your work here and your questions as well. I do want to remind you that this chat is going to be recorded, and it will be available tomorrow morning to view, and it'll be up forever and a day, so you can refer back to it. You can feel free to comment on this chat anywhere in the future, anytime in the future, going to the YouTube channel. I'd love to hear from you all. Some of you may not even be watching this right now. You're going to be getting these words tomorrow or sometime this week when you've gotten to it. So it's never too late to comment in. In the meantime, for next week's chat, I would love to hear from you. Go to the channel, go to my webpage, warnerhealingguidance.com. You can email me, you can comment on the channel, tell me what you want to hear, tell me what you would like to talk about. What are your driving concerns, your life concerns? What's throwing you off balance? How can I help guide you to make life a little bit smoother, perhaps? Maybe help you look at things from a different perspective. I also want to remind you that Tuesday through Friday on this channel, I put out a short video, usually about a minute long. They come up at 7 o'clock a.m. every morning Eastern Standard Time. It might be a little something to help you get your day started, give you something to ponder, maybe help you guide your day in a little bit more balanced way. So I just want to thank you again. And any last comments, Rob? We got anything this evening? Okay. So I want, lastly, and I didn't say it in the beginning, I want to say have a well-observed Memorial Day. I spent 11 years in the Army. My father, my grandfather both fought in world wars. Unfortunately, they were not killed in battle, wouldn't be here. But do honor all of those who have given their all so that we can have what we have today. And if any of your family members are in that category, our thoughts go out to you. Again, thank you, and I will see you next week.